Hi everyone, this is Mary again. This is, I believe, episode 5. And what we're going to be doing today is I want to start it out where I left off yesterday, where give you just a couple more pointers on protecting yourself from spiritual attacks. Now, yesterday, I talked about using the pendulum to open up your chakras, but I didn't have my pendulum with me. But today I found one, and I want to just share this with you. Now, this is real. I do Reiki, I do angel healing, but I have found that this here works better than anything else I've ever found. It's nice and quick. You don't have to use yourself as a conduit. You don't have to put your hands on anyone. You just let the pendulum do the work. Now, what you do is you take your pendulum and you hold it still right over your chakra, the crown. See, now it's showing that my chakra has been closed somewhat, my crown chakra. Now, I'm not doing anything with my hands at all. I just let the pendulum do the work. Okay. Now, as soon as it's opened up that chakra, it's going to stop. But now now what's going to, sometimes even though it stops, you just kind of hold it a little bit more so, because it may stop, but then it'll start up again. So you have to be patient. Okay. I want to watch my aura too as I'm doing this. See, my aura's growing. Let's see, here we go. Of course, it looks like my chakra was closed somewhat. And people ask me, explain the mystery behind this pendulum, and I have to say, I really don't know how it works, but I do know it does work. Alrighty. Now I'll take it down to my third eye. Oh, look at my third eye. See, the pendulum's really working. I haven't worked on myself for a while, so, I'm pretty well closed up. I haven't worked on myself since the election, so I imagine I'm really closed. But no, see, no, it stopped. Now, sometimes this can take a few minutes. It all depends on how much energy work you've done on yourself. Other times it could take, if you're really closed, it could take a long time. So I'm not going to go all the way through this. And with your pendulum, remember, everything has its own consciousness. So after you've got done with the pendulum, always make sure that you say to your pendulum, thank you. Okay, now that's working on my third eye. Now, okay, I'll have to wait. Okay, let's see. Thank you. But it has to stop, totally stop. And then once it totally stops, you know that it has done its job of opening up that chakra. And so it hasn't stopped. That means that I'm going to have to work on it. So, it could take, heck, it could take up to 10 minutes. No, now it stopped. But I always leave it alone just in case it wants to start up again. Now, see, your throat is communication, and see how quickly it stopped, because I have been communicating a lot. Now, here, and then you go to your heart, and then, and down, and you take it all the way down to the bottom of your feet. And what's really great about it, for especially like people that's on their feet all the time, all you have to do, because like after you've been on your feet all day long, you come home and your feet are really hurting, okay? So what you do, hold on just a second. Ugh. Hold on. I had somebody. Okay, now I can do it. I had somebody pop up on my screen. I couldn't get through. But what you do is you go down with your pendulum. You can do this every night if you want to. But you go right to the bottom of your feet. And you let that pendulum do its thing. Do its magic. And I swear, if you get yourself a pendulum and you do this, you got achy feet, I guarantee you when that pendulum gets done, you won't have achy feet anymore. And you just let it circle and circle and circle, and it could just go back and forth, back and forth. See, now it's going back and forth. And like I said, I can't explain to you exactly how it works. All I know is it works. If you got back problems, it also cures back problems. If you got problems in your hands, take it over that. Your hands and let it do its work. And you'll kind of, like right now, I'm feeling a cooling sensation at the bottom of my feet. And then when that gets done, it'll stop. Alrighty, here it is. It'll stop. Now you hold it a little bit because it may want to start working again. See, now this one started working again. It's reversing. And it'll do that. And then as soon as it stops, you know it's done. And then you just go to your other foot. Okay, see, now it's stopped. And you do it. Now, hold on. You can do that from, here, let me stand up. If you're just doing an overall cleansing or opening up your chakras, you go here, you go here, you go here, here, and then here, and then the root, and then always finish it up with the bottoms of your feet. And it is amazing. A dowser friend actually showed this to me one time, and I could not believe how well it works. So that's what I do anymore, because with the Reiki, it takes a long time, to get the Reiki going. And I don't have a whole lot of patience. Kind of like that instant gratification thing. So anyhow, he introduced me to it. I used it. I had great results with it. I started using it in my classes, teaching other people how to use it, and it's always been successful. But remember, always think your pendulum. Always. And it's good for everything. It's good for relaxation, taking away the stress, headaches, backaches, feet aches, opening up your chakras, all that. And you can actually, if you have a pet, like I do here. Let's see. If you have a little pet, you can actually use the pendulum with your animal. And you just can't, you just keep going and stopping. See, like Max has got, see how that's working right here? How strong that is? The reason for that is, see, Max has got like a lump right there. See that lump right there? Anyhow, if you noticed, when I was doing his head, not too much was going on. Now watch when I get down by that lump. See, look at that. See how it's working, that lump? I should be doing this all the time with him, because that will work with that lump. Now I've taken him to the bed. It's just fat tissue, but I know it's painful for him though, because he doesn't like for me to mess with it. But so you can do this on your animals, and it doesn't really make a much difference of what type of pendulum you have. You can have like a crystal pendulum or some sort of a gemstone pendulum. You can use a, copper pendulum. See, it's really working on that lump. And I think I'm just going to see it's starting to slow down now. See, now it's going back and forth. See, before it was going in a circle. Now it's going back and forth. When I was being taught Reiki, I was working on a dog, and it was kind of interesting because I was doing the Reiki, not knowing anything about the dog, but I was doing Reiki, and the dog actually turned over on its back so that I could put the energy to his chest area. And the woman told me that he had, and the same way it goes with Max, she had found out from the vet that he had a heart murmur. And so the dog knew what I was doing. He could actually feel that energy, the healing energy. So what the dog did is he actually went and turned on his back so that I could concentrate more on that his heart area. So now with this, I don't know for sure if it's just, well, I imagine it's working with everything, that bunch, and then that little small heart murmur he's got. But as soon as it stops, and it looks like it's about ready to, yeah, there it goes. Yeah, he's good. And he's nice and calm. And again, thank you, pendulum. Thank you. And put it away. All right. So that to me is, everybody should have a pendulum. Everybody should be using it at least once a week to clear their chakras. And I always advise people to get the bottoms of their feet and their hands. And because a lot of times what happens is you have this negative energy that comes into you. And it comes on down through the whole body and usually goes out the bottoms of the feet, down into the earth, where the earth cleans that negative energy up and sends it back up into Father Sky. But if you have closed chakras on your feet, what it's going to do is all this energy is going to be coming down through, but once it gets down to the feet, if the chakra is closed, then what will happen is there's no way to release that energy. So then it starts building up. And first of all, you're going to see it building up, like your feet's going to be achy. And that's why I say if you're waitressing or you're on your feet a lot, just when you get home, just use the pendulum, on your feet, and it'll open up those chakras, and all that negative energy, that build up, will be able to be released. And you'll just be so surprised at how well this works. But now, if you don't open up those chakras on your feet, you start with the achy feet. Then next thing you know, it's starting to build up. Goes up into your ankles. You'll have swollen ankles. Then it goes up into the legs. And all of a sudden you're going to start having leg issues. Goes up into the back. It just keeps building up, building up, and building up. And I really think that is one of the cause of kidney stones, is the energy gets up into that area and it crystallizes. Thus, the crystallized energy comes in the form of kidney stones. So I think that if you have problems with kidney stones, get your pendulum and start working on your feet and on your legs and on your back until all those chakras are opened up and that energy can go, run freely through your body. But if you've got closed chakras, you're going to have problems there. Like with a closed chakra heart, it's you can have okay, let's use this as an example. Brad got cancer of the throat. But Brad is the type of person, he doesn't say very much. And usually when he does have something to say, it's, he's kind of a BSer. He's great for those one-liners. But he's a strong man. He kind of takes in, any problem, kind of deals with it quietly, which is good for me, But the thing was, he wasn't communicating. He wasn't releasing. He was just kept quiet and dealt with it. And because he wasn't releasing, his chakras started building up. Well, they actually start building up out here, it comes into your aura, and then it slowly starts coming closer and closer and closer until it actually goes into the body physically. And so with him, his this chakra had closed, and thus, he ended up with the blueberries. Okay, but and he realized that, because now that he's cured and everything, boy, you should listen to this guy talk. I mean, he just, he knows, and he believes in my teaching, and now when there's a problem or something, he talks about it. He doesn't keep it to himself anymore. I mean, he doesn't talk negative about it, but at least he releases it. And like with your heart chakra, the heart chakra is one thing it does is that's where manifestation comes from your mind, and then the Kickstarter is your heart. So if your heart chakra is closed, it could keep you from manifesting your desires. It could also cause relationship problems, and physically it can cause problems with your heart, physical problems with your heart. So that's so I wanted to share that with you. So try it. I'd also like to know for you, all of you that put that aluminum foil on your forehead yesterday. I'd like to hear from you to see if you saw those little pinholes after you took it off. And Marcus Rosenberg says yes, and ground it into the earth barefooted. Good idea. He's talking about grinding, taking the energy and just kind of swooshing it into the earth, But if you don't, it'll still go there. But the earth is a wonderful, wonderful thing for grounding yourself. You see cats and dogs, various animals, when they're indoors all the time, first thing they do is when they go outdoors is they find a patch of grass and they start scratching. And that helps to ground them, and also releases energy from the earth back up into their body. And so I always encourage people on the tours, that when we get into the woods, that they think like a dog, and just start, scratching with their feet onto the dirt, and it works wonders. Another thing a person can do, as far as stress related, is you can go to a tree. Usually you'll find the tree because the term is the tree will call you. But what that really means is you'll be looking around, and there will be one tree that all of a sudden it gets your attention. And that's basically what calling is it gets your attention. When you find a nice big tree that, that has called your attention to it, go to that tree, lean your full body back into that tree. Relax, take some breaths, just go into a total relaxed state. And when you do, the tree will pull all that negative energy, all that stress out of you. And then it sends it down into the ground, and then the ground cleans it up and sends it back up through the tree into the high branches, which then releases it to Father Sky. But another thing you can do, if you're stressed, is get your hands in dirt. If you ever notice when you're gardening, and your hands are, in that dirt, you're concentrating on nothing else but the moment, the now. And what it does is there's a certain enzyme in the dirt that works with our brain, where the brain actually releases a chemical that relaxes you. It's nature's way of relaxing you. Instead of taking your drug, a tranquilizer or something like that. It works on the same principle as that, except this is healthy. So, anyhow, that's, I think, oh, now today, you notice I have earrings on, and these earrings have rose quartz. And I also have mist, rose scented mist. And of course, rose is, it's love. It has the vibration of love. So today what I did is what I do at night is I spray it on my bed, for good dreams, happy dreams. But anyhow, I'll take this rose and I'll spray it around me and spray a little bit on me. And anyhow, because of the scent, it produces a vibration of love. And we can never, never, ever get enough love, right? Even if it has to be, you love yourself. Because actually that's where it all starts anyhow, is loving yourself. Because if you can't love yourself, you certainly cannot be able to love anybody else. So it all starts with you and your vibration. And then from that, your vibration, it expands out, to other people. I have people that I used to, I kind of do, I do, not kind of, but I do spiritual counseling. And people, they become codependent on others, for their love, to receive love. And then let's say that person leaves them, and they're lost. They don't know how to get that love. And I always tell people, if you have like a mirror in your house or in your bedroom, when you get up in the morning, look at that mirror, at yourself's reflection, and just talk to that mirror, talk to you. And you tell yourself all these positive things, like, I love you. You're the best thing in the world that's happened to me, and you say that to the mirror. I went through, I've been married a few times, but I went through a divorce, and I was in a dark place, and I was codependent on love. Probably still am because of Brad, but anyhow. But at that time, I was by myself. I had my kids, but I was in that dark place. And I had read some self-help books, and so that's what I decided I was going to do, was start loving myself. Instead of finding somebody else out there to love, that's not going to satisfy me anyhow, I decided that I was going to learn how to love myself. So that's what I would do, is I would look at myself in the mirror and tell myself how much, I love myself. And I would actually go to the store and buy myself roses and bring them home and put them in a vase on the table or someplace that I could see them. See, it was I gave myself a love present. In my mind, I would see those, and my mind accepted the gift of love. because it's going to accept it regardless from where it's from. So, and I used to even get I remember one time I went to Walmart and I bought myself, because it was Valentine's Day and I knew my kids, they were little, they wasn't going to get me anything. But anyhow, that's another story. But the typical boys. But so anyhow, I went to Walmart and I got myself a great big old white fluffy teddy bear that was holding a heart and the words, "I love you." That was 20 some years ago. And I still have that overstuffed teddy bear that says, "I love you." And it's here someplace. Up until we moved here, I used to always keep it on my bed as a reminder that somebody loves me, other than Brad and my kids. And that's what you have to do, because the brain will accept that. You just keep saying, "I love you, I love you, I love you. You're the best person in the whole wide world." The brain will accept that and respond accordingly. So thoughts create. And so what you need to do to protect yourself is surround yourself with love, even if you have to give it to you by you. Okay? Let's see. Oh, and then there's one more thing before we get on with the other part of the show. And I forgot to mention this on psychic vampires. We used to have this gentleman. We lived in Burlington at the time, and I had the Burlington UFO and Paranormal Research Center. But there was a guy, an older guy, probably 70s, 80s, something like that. But he lived in Lake Geneva. But once a month, he would come to Burlington. And he would stop at every one of the stores and visit everyone in the stores. The only problem was, it was like, oh, that's my son too. But Brad will tell him, oh, kind of got an emergency at the house. But we'll take care of that later. So anyhow, he would come and he would tell stories to everybody. Well, I had to have this surgery, and the other day I had, my stomach was hurting, and, the people around me, they've been doing some negative stuff, and, he'd just go on with all this negativity. And then as soon as he was done with one store owner, he'd go to another store owner, tell the same story. And every time he did this, and he'd stop at our store too, the research center, because I had a gift store there. But I noticed that every time that he came to my place, he was a pleasant enough man, but every time he left, I always felt so tired. It was like he drained my energy. So this went on for months. Like I said, he only come into town once a month. And so I decided I'm going to go talk to some of the other store owners and seeing if they're having any problems with this guy. So I did. And sure enough, everybody had the same story, that he came in once a month, and after he left, they always felt tired. That is like he was draining their energy. Well, lo and behold, that's exactly what he was doing. He was a psychic vamp. And I doubt if the guy even knew he was a psychic vamp. Most people don't. But what happens a lot of times with a psychic vamp is, when it gets real bad, is it's like a car battery. All right? And the battery gets so low. Now, when you first have a battery, you can just, it charges itself. And so you can get in the car, turn the car on, boom, the engine starts right up off the battery. But then the longer you have it, eventually the battery kind of tires out. And sometimes, if the longer you keep it, next thing you know, the car won't start. Battery's dead. So you get a jump from somebody else's battery. And then the car runs fine. But after a while, the battery's dead again. So you got to get another jump. And then it runs well. And then it goes dead again. Then you got to get another jump. And see, this is what this guy was doing. And like I said, I'm sure he wasn't even aware of it. But it was like clockwork. Once a month, he would come to Burlington and he would go to every one of those store owners. And what he was doing, the reason he was doing it was because he was feeding. He was actually feeding off the energy of all, and he knew, of course, store owners, we can't just walk away from people. We can't leave our store. So he had a captive audience. And so he would come in once a month, stock himself up on his food supply, then go back to Lake Geneva, and he would be fine for about another month, and then he would, sure as clockwork, he'd be right back again. So what I learned, and it was really strange. You remember watching those old movies, those old westerns, and the white man would go into the teepee, with the Indian, and they'd all sit in a circle. And you would always see the Indian setting with his legs crossed and his arms crossed. Well, now I watched all those movies, never thought anything of it. But once I got into metaphysical work, then all of a sudden I got thinking, aha, I know what they're doing. It's just going back again to the car. Just like the car, the body has an electrical circuit. And it's got to be closed, okay? And then the energy runs around and around and around and around, and the engine runs smoothly, okay? But it's a continuous circle. So what happens is, as long as that's running in a circle, the engine's fine. But if there's any breakdown of that circle, then all of a sudden you're hearing the engine going or whatever, and then you got to tune the engine up in order to get it, running smoothly again. So what's happened? Why the Indians crossed their legs and crossed their arms was because as long as your hands are disconnected and your legs are disconnected, they're not crossed, you're open for any psychic vampire to come through and feed off of. So the Indians were aware of this. So what they would do is close their circuit by crossing their legs and crossing their arms and sitting in that fashion, because then they could sit in that circle and they would be a closed circuit as well. And that way they would not be allowing the white person, to feed off of them. It was their way of protecting themselves. So I thought that was pretty cool. So, and you'll see that a lot with people who don't even notice they're doing it. Stand back, watch people sometime. A lot of times they'll subconsciously, just as they're visiting with somebody, they'll either have their legs crossed or their arms crossed, or like with me, lots of times you'll see me sitting in a chair, talking to somebody, and I'll have my arms crossed and my legs crossed. And I don't even consciously do it anymore. It's just I start feeling something and my body just it's like an automatic pilot. It goes into that. And I don't mean to be rude or anything, but that's just how it goes, But that's why the Indians cross their arms and legs. Isn't that cool? So anyhow, and I'm not a psychiatrist or anything like that, but I believe that there's a lot of people that are very smart in this world, very intelligent, high IQs. or people that have a lot of common sense. But because of life circumstances, they can't afford to go to college. And, get the skills of the higher learning and, and get a degree. Some people, they can't afford it. Other people, they're raising a family. The men, they're trying to provide for their families. The women are pregnant or they're raising their babies. So that doesn't take away the fact that they're not intelligent. It just means they don't have a degree. But they can. My dad always used to say, yeah, you buy them shoes. How do you say that? You buy them shoes and books, and all you get is an intelligent idiot. Well, that's because some of the kids, he didn't mean anything by all you guys, out there, that's got your degrees. I mean, but sometimes you do get a little discouraged with some, spending a lot of time and money, on kids and watching them not use it. So anyhow, that's just the way my dad talked. But it does, I did listen, and it's true. There's a lot that don't have the benefits of the higher learning, but that does not mean that they're not intelligent and that they don't use common sense. And so with me, I watch, I listen. I don't have a counseling degree, but I also feel for people. I'm an empath, and I do feel for people. Even people, that just, I don't even want to be around. If they're hurting, I hurt. I don't want to see anybody hurt, and I don't like saying anything bad about anybody either. But going back to counseling, I've watched people. Well, I used to have that publishing business in Phoenix, and we used to have one of the publications we put out was the A.J. Tadler, and that was pretty much a bi-monthly magazine. It was kind of pretty much it pretty much had stories for the locals and advertising in it, of course, and I had like a column, for advice column, and then I also had like stories from the Superstition Mountains. It was very, very popular. I was very successful with it, but people would come to me with stories, problems that they were having. I don't know, they just felt that they could come to me and maybe I could get somebody to do something about it. Many of the people that came in to me were abuse victims, and I'd hear their stories, and I actually did a 3-part series on abuse in the home, based on adults abusing children, children abusing adults, and then and then husbands abusing wives, wives abusing husbands. But I put a lot of research into it, and I was hearing a lot of stories. But I noticed that basically they all had the same story about the abusee would have this, the victim would almost have the same story as the abuser, regardless of none of these people had met before. But it's almost like the abuser all had the same. They had read the same instructional book, and it's like, how does that work? How could these guys be doing the same thing without them getting together? Because the MO was almost identical. So I started checking into it and reading and studying, and then I realized that they were like the car battery that goes dead. and has to be jump started. They have the abuser needs that energy. He feeds off that energy, and it's just like that little old man from Lake Geneva. He would come to Burlington, feed off all of us, and then it could be good for a whole month. And then pretty soon after that month, his energy would be so low, he needed to go and feed again. Now, this old gentleman now, he found more of a positive way of doing it. But the abuser, I am totally convinced when it comes to home abuse, that the abuser is a psychic vamp. And I'm almost positive they're not even aware of it. But as long as they're feeding, as long as they're full, they can be the nicest people in the whole world. But once their energy levels gets lower and lower, the more anxious they become, the more sullen they become, the angrier they become. And then they have to feed. And they will feed off their spouse or their child. A person that is close to them, that loves them. Because see, that's the key, is if a psychic vampire can find somebody to marry, or that is pretty much dependent on them, then that person won't leave them. And so what they'll do is they'll feed off that person, beat them or mentally abuse them, whatever, to get that person to release that energy, release their energy, because they're so upset. Either it's so upset because they've been beaten, or it's upset because the abuser has done something to cause them to just emotionally just lose it. And when I say lose it, I mean lose the energy. Now then, what will happen is with the abuser, he sucks up all that energy. And then the very next day, guaranteed, here you come back saying, oh, I love you, I'm sorry, it'll never happen again. They'll bring you candy, they'll give you roses, whatever. Because now what they have to do, because you're your food source, they don't want you to leave. They can't afford to have you to leave. So what now they got to do is apologize. And then 9 times out of 10, the victim will accept the apology for some reason, whether it be love or because the kids or financial, dependency, whatever. They'll forgive. And then that person will be really good to them. The abuser will be really good. Until all of a sudden his energy starts dropping. Then you see the same pattern over and over and over and over again until their spouse leaves them and says, or hopefully gets out of that bad situation. Some women never do get out of that some situation. Some die. It's a bad situation, but you can be guaranteed if they hit you once or did something wrong once, chances are they're going to do it again. If they do it again, then you can pretty well figure out that they're a psychic vampire and you are their Thanksgiving dinner, so. And I've watched it, and I'm totally convinced that's what they are. Totally convinced. And then what happens is the cycle continues, because now, let's say the abuser beats the victim. She's down or he's down. And, energy-wise. I mean, they're just empty. They're an empty tank. So what do? They go to their friends. They go to their family. They go to their Facebook friends. And they tell them everything that's happened. That their husband beat them or wife beat them, or they're being so cruel, I can't take it anymore. What happens? That first person that they're talking to says, oh, I feel so sorry for you. And the first thing they do, because they really do feel sorry for them. So the first thing that they do is they open up their hearts to them. Thus, they open up their aura. Then that person that's the victim has now created another victim. And when that victim leaves, that person, the secondary victim, will say, oh my God, I love her or I love him, but just listening to all this stuff, it just wipes me out. I get so tired. I get so tired of listening to this. So then they're telling somebody this. And then, same thing. Now you got a third victim. And it's like a dog chasing after its tail. Around and around and around you go. And the only way out of it is to break that cycle. And I try to be there for everybody. I really do. But I'll repeat something so much to someone. And if I see that they're not listening, but they keep telling me the same story, then I say, uh-oh, we got a problem here. And I'll pull up my wall. And then they can't get through anymore. Or they come over and I'll cross my arms and I'll cross my legs and listen to them, because then they can't pull my energy. But I will use some sort of protection. And sometimes I just have to walk away from them. And I love my friends, and they know how much I love them. But sometimes I do walk away from my friends, and I know that they think that makes me a very severe person, but it doesn't. It just means that I have learned to love myself enough not to allow anyone out there to hurt me or to take my energy from me. My energy is way too precious. But anyhow, going back to that little old man from Lake Geneva, and how he would make his monthly rounds in Burlington. As soon as I figured out what he was, and I had figured out why the Indians cross their legs and cross their arms, I watched and waited for that month to come by, and sure enough, here he comes. And he always stopped at my place, always. But I stood in there, and because I had this big old, picture window, and I'm standing there, and I'm looking and watching him coming towards the store. And I'm standing there, and I got my legs crossed, and my arms crossed, and I'm just watching him. And as closer he got to the door, he would stop and he would hesitate, like he was picking up something, or he wasn't picking up something, right? I think that's what it was. He wasn't picking up something. And then he would continue a little bit further, get a little bit closer to the door, and finally he got right to the door, put his hand on the door, and stopped, turned around, and went back out on the street. And I never saw him again. Never. Not one time. Because you see, he wasn't interested in buying something in my store. He wanted to feed off my energy. And because I had that energy protected, apparently subconsciously he couldn't feel that energy anymore coming from me. And so he didn't want to waste his time, so he just went to the next door owner. So anyhow, that's how I see things, as far as abuse goes. And the abuser's like a dead battery that cannot regenerate the energy. They have to find somebody else to feed off of, to fill themselves, and then afterwards they're good for a month, and then it'll happen again. Lynn says, I was married to one of those for over 20 years, exhausting. Now I'm quite ill from all that. And you do have to get, that's why I think that when, use that pendulum like I told you. You know, all those little tricks I gave you yesterday work. Cut those cords, girl. Cut those cords, because I think that's why you're ill, is because, see, you still have those cords. And all you do, see, because you was with him and you walked in his soul for 20 years, he's got these attachments to him. And you've got attachments to him. And so because of it, you continue to, you become ill. You know, so what you need to do is visualize those cords, and you just take your finger and you just start cutting, cut, you know, all through your aura, cut those cords, and you'll feel much better. And I feel sorry for you. I do, because I totally understand it, you know, because I came from an abusive marriage too. It was, oh gosh, we were married for 17 years, I think it was, when I finally said I can't do it anymore, you know, and I walked away. And it was hard. Oh my God, it was like he was in an addiction. I mean, it was the hardest thing I ever did, was walking away from him. I had 2 boys by him, you know, and I continued even after, you know, our marriage, after the divorce. For the sake of the boys, I continued to be friends with him, but I always knew to put my protection up. And anytime after I left him, I always cut my cords, you know, because I wasn't going to take any chances. But it was because the victim becomes addicted to it. It's like what's that called? What's that called? It's a syndrome. It's a POW syndrome, a Stockholm syndrome. It's identical to the Stockholm syndrome, where we become dependent on on our captors. So, you know, it's and crying's good. Cry, get it out. Nothing wrong with crying. More people should cry, you know, because crying is a release. You know, so you cry. And know that there are people here for you. I think just understanding what I talked about today, Lynn, just understanding what had happened and why you became, you know, a victim of abuse, you'll heal, and cutting the cords will help you to heal. And we're here for you. We always will be here for you. Sometimes, you know, like with me and those boys, or with their dad, I could have went a couple different directions, but because, I mean, he did a lot of bad things to me. I mean, physically, mentally, you know, financially, you name it. If he could figure out something to do to tear my life apart, he did. But I never hated him, you know. I hated his deeds, but he was the boys' dad, and it was important that my kids had their dad in their life, and I kind of made him up, you know, maybe more than I should have. But my kids grew up, because I didn't hate them. My kids grew up healthy, strong, good providers, non-abusers, because he never showed that in front of the boys. That was one good thing he did. If he wanted to beat the heck out of me, he always made sure that there was nobody else was around to do it. So, you know, but I look at him as he was there. When before I came on this earth plane, we had made some sort of a decision as souls, you know, that this was to happen. He chose his role, I chose my role, the boys chose their role, and so I looked at it as something to learn from. And I did. And if it hadn't been for him, if it wasn't for all the things that I experienced with him, I wouldn't be able to do the counseling I do today. I wouldn't have that empathy for people. Because in order to truly be able to relate to somebody, you have got to have gone through it yourself. You have to have experienced that same pain, that same frustration. All the books in the world isn't going to be able to make you into a counselor, because people, like a victim going to a counselor, she can, if that counselor has been through it, that victim will pick that up, energy-wise. And they'll understand the true emotions behind that counselor. They'll know if it's a counselor that's read a book up on it and went to school on it, or if that counselor had actually went through it and was a survivor of it. And I think the person that's gone through it, like what I went through, I survived it, but I also understand it now. And because of it, I can talk to you, and I can feel what you're going through. And I can also honestly say, you can survive something like this. And I can provide different little tricks in order to help you to survive something like this. So I've never hated him, because that was his job. He was a jerk, but so be it. That's what he signed up for. He died a few years ago of cancer, and but I had 2 beautiful boys from him. I've seen my grandchildren from him, and we remained friends up until the day he died. So be it. And so you don't have to cut your nose off to spite your face either. You don't learn that much from the good things in life. But when we suffer all this anguish and we survive it, that's the test that you need to pass. That's where integrity comes in. That's where strength and courage. These are your lessons that you learn to build your courage, to build your survival techniques, even. So, you just thank God that thank God every day that you survived it. But it's okay too that never hate them, because probably you learned your greatest life lessons from them. But like I said, if you're still suffering from the stress and that pull to the point where it is making you sick or something like that, cut those cords, just imaginary, with your fingers, just cut, and because those psychic cords are very, very real. They're just as real as the physical cords that you see. It's just that you can't see it. But actually they damage you more than the physical cords do. Because the physical cords, you can go to the doctor and get a pill or whatever, But those psychic cords, boy, they're the rough ones, because you don't know about them. I think that is one of the reasons. I don't think people are lazy, or that they don't choose spirituality, and they don't practice psychic healing and things like that, and they don't use preventative medicine, spiritually. I think what it is they just don't know about it. And they're not aware of psychic cords. They're not aware of how abusive relationships work, as similar to psychic vampires feeding. So I think that, the ones of us that do know and we do understand and we are survivors, I think that that is part of our path, that we were given all these tests and these obstacles in life so that we could experience it, so we could share it with others. It's kind of like we were chosen to build the bridge for others to cross over safely. And so that's why I'm doing this now with this live streaming, because I can help you to learn and to see through my experiences. I'm not saying my way is the only way, because there's probably 10,000 other ways to do it. But the best I can do is to share with you some of the things I've learned that you may be able to use. I can give you, I can share my tools with you. And it's free. So, I mean, it's not like you're losing out on anything except time. And, some people are going to listen to me and say, that really helped. And then other people, like that person yesterday, I'm just full of BS, so be it. What works for one does not necessarily work for another. I remember when I had the sci-fi, or the Burlington UFO and Paranormal Research Center. I did a radio show, and then plus I wrote a lot of articles, and I get such vicious email that would come in, saying, "Who are you? Who do you think you are? How dare you present yourself as a knowing person or whatever? Where do you get your facts?" And I'd get caught up in that. And I'd be answering them, and I was trying and arguing my point to them. Always explaining myself. And then one day it's like, wait a minute. Every time I have to stop to explain myself, I'm losing time at going forward and teaching and learning. And as soon as I got that, I ceased to, and if somebody wanted to write some mean email to me and tell me, that, hey, I don't like you, you crazy or whatever, I just say, so be it. Whatever. I would not waste my energy letting them feed off me. Thus now, I may not like things that people say. Okay, I'll give you that. But I don't waste my energy on that. I just keep going forward. And if I get upset, I take my bath and my Epsom salts and my baking powder or baking soda, do some smudging, use the pendulum to keep my chakras open, and surround myself with wonderful people, which is you guys, because we're like minds. So anyhow, that's it for today. I was going to go into Bigfoot, but I felt that there was a few people that was watching that I needed to stay on course with these healing tips. Okay, so maybe tomorrow. Diana Palm's here, so I want to say what I was going to do is, remember that time that we had that Bigfoot attack us? And then the next day we went up and took all those pictures of the fallen trees and the footprints and all that stuff. Anyhow, that's what I was going to be talking on today. But I think that I'll leave that for tomorrow. But there's one thing I do want to say, because I know that, Diana, you're here. Remember how I said that when that Bigfoot came charging off that hill, I couldn't scream? You were standing back there at the end with Brad, if I remember right. But I said I couldn't move and I couldn't scream or anything. It was like I was paralyzed, and I thought at that point in time maybe it was because I was paralyzed from fear. Well, this year, another little boy with his, well, he was 10 years old probably, but anyhow, he was up there with us, with his mom and dad, and right in that, almost that same area, he froze. It was just like he went into a shutdown mode, and he said that everything just went black. And he was talking, all of a sudden, nothing. And he was like frozen, just like a wind-up toy. And all of a sudden you turn it off, that's what he looked like. And his parents were yelling at him, shaking him, and about, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds later, maybe even a minute later, he snaps out of it, looks at all of us, and says, well, what happened? Then that was the same thing that happened to me, except I was able to, I could see, nothing went black, but I couldn't scream, and I couldn't move. But I was watching that Bigfoot come at me. And I just wanted to tell you about it real quickly, because I found out what it is infrasound. INFRA sound. Infrasound. And whales use it to paralyze squid. Sperm whales use it to paralyze squid before they catch them and eat them. Whales or tigers and lions, they also use it to paralyze their food, their prey before they eat them. And elephants use it too. So that's why I wasn't able to move. So anyhow, I want to share that with you, Diana. And welcome back to Wisconsin. I'm hoping to see you soon. But you know me, I'm not a cold weather person, so it might be this spring we'll get together. So anyhow, one more thing. I wanted to let everyone know that I'm actually taking these videos and I'm putting them on my website. And I'll put the URL under comments so that you guys can check them out. Somebody taught me how to copy the embedded code and then transfer the embedded code onto my website. So anyhow, then that way I don't have to worry about us losing them on Facebook. So I'm going to put them on my website, livinginthelightms.com and burlingtonnews.net. And I also have a blog site, so I'm going to put it on the blog site too. And yeah, I'll eventually get it to YouTube too. Right now I kind of want to stick with my like-minded people before I expose too much of myself to YouTube and all the trolls out there. Anyhow, love you guys, and I'll just talk to you later. Keep that energy contained. Be happy, be safe, love yourself. Cut those cords, get on with life. And remember, if you're happy, everybody's going to be happy. So you take care of yourself, especially you, Lynn. Okay? We love you, and we're watching. And as long as you need me, I'll be there. There's a lot of us here in this group that will be right there for you. You can bet on it. Anyhow, all of you have a nice day, and love ya.